The 2010s saw the introduction of several key pop-punk bands. Real Friends got really big, Neck Deep had a lot of success, and modern baseball was absolutely killing it. We saw the rise of sad boy pop-punk, which combined the sensitivity of emo with the fast-paced energy of pop-punk. And even though the genre wasn't as big as it was in the 2000s, it was still getting a lot of attention from publications like Rock Sound and Alternative Press. And no other pop-punk band was more publicized than God's favorite boy band, Waterparks. Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Trevor and I am eternally uncool. I make videos about music, music culture, and anything that interests me, but mostly music right now. So if that sounds like something you'd be into, then I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and watching the rest of this video. Waterparks has been a pretty big band within the scene for the last 10 years or so. They started out relatively unknown in Houston, Texas, getting their first big break opening for Aaron Carter of all people.
Here we are backstage at Aaron Carter. Smells pretty glorious. Not like a sewer or anything.
They released the EPs Airplane Conversations and Blacklight, performed on the Vans Warped Tour, and then caught the attention of Equal Vision Records, who signed them in 2015, as well as the Madden Brothers, who would go on to produce their first two albums.
I remember chatting to Austin a while back, and I was saying, like, you know, Benji and Joel, they clearly look after you musically, they give advice and all this kind of stuff, and he said, man, they're like my life gurus.
I've been a fan of Waterparks since 2017 or 2018. I still casually listen to them, though not as much as I used to. I do think that they're one of the few pop-punk bands with the potential to lead a resurgence. They incorporate genres like hip-hop and electro just enough to make their music appeal to a wider audience, while still keeping with some pop-punk elements. Here looks like shit. And you can't deny that Austin Knight is one of the most charismatic frontmen in the scene today. They've released some really good albums, but they've also released some really not good albums. I think you know where I'm going with this. Today, I'm going to take a look at Waterparks' discography and do my best to rank them from worst to best. As always, the rankings here are not definitive. Don't get upset if I put your favorite album at the bottom or your least favorite album at the top. These are just my opinions.
So chill.
And I'm only going to include studio albums on this one, so you won't see Cluster or Airplane Conversations. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into Waterparks from worst to best. You know, I don't know how to feel about Waterparks' greatest hits. On the one hand, it's one of their most experimental albums. It's a big, loud album that can fill a stadium. They take their pop-punk sound and add elements of hip-hop and pop and break beats. The energy is undeniably high. It's a hype album. It's ambitious, there's no doubting that. But on the other hand, it just doesn't excite me. The songs are catchy, loud, and hype, but they just leave me wanting more. Even the album's lead single, Low Key as Hell, is a song I really like, but when I'm done listening to it, I feel like there's just something missing. And then there's the other single, Snow Globe, which sounds like Waterparks is just trying to do a kind of slow, edgy R&B type of song like The Weeknd, but not really pulling it off. Like The Weeknd in The Idol.
Hello, Angel.
You better stop!
The beat is nice, the production is good, but the song just really doesn't vibe with me. One of the few songs I think is truly great is The Secret Life of Me. It's got these great break beats that remind me of UK garage music.
Sundays looking like a Sunday, wishing for a Sunday I could run away like that. Never think I need a life for maybe 9, 'cause I'm feeling like I'm running out of time, yeah.
And Austin's vocals are more reserved on that track, which I really like. It's a great song, and I wish the rest of the album sounded like it. I think calling this album Greatest Hits, while obviously sarcastic, put too much hype in my dumb brain that the album just couldn't live up to. It's not a terrible album. It's well produced, and Jeff, Otto, and Austin all play their instruments really well. It's just underwhelming.
And then she walked away. I didn't get her name. I can't explain the look on her face. She wore a sweater in summer weather. Yeah, she wore a sweater. It was funeral gray.
I've gotta wash my hair. Looks like shit. When every music YouTuber was doing their end of the year list not too long ago, I remember seeing one specific album on multiple year-end worst lists. And that album was Waterparks' 2023 release, Intellectual Property. I remember one specific video on the Rocked channel really struck me. As far as I knew, this album was received fairly well. Kerrang gave it 4 out of 5 stars, saying, "Another compelling addition to a discography that always succeeds in bringing something fresh to the table." But Luke from Rocked asserts that Waterparks were merely riding trends, mixing hyperpop with their usual pop-punk sound, and calling the lyrics ridiculous, which... Have you even listened to the band? I can see where Luke is coming from, though. As someone who hasn't listened to Waterparks in a minute, this album does kind of feel like it's coming out of left field. Songs like Super Dark sound like if 9 Inch Nails collaborated with 100 Gex on a 2000s throwback song.
Oh, you been patient? He's busy. Cause I just drove through it. On my brand new jet ski. So leave some tears after the. If you're feeling silly, I'll call you beef you late. 12 dozen serial kill me.
But there's still hints of that classic Waterparks sound with songs like Funeral Grey, a truly catchy pop-punk song. And some of the production and beats are really interesting. Waterparks was always good at doing stuff like that, adding more modern production to their pop-punk alternative sound. I disagree with Luke from Rocked saying this album is for no one. This album is definitely for someone, and that someone is anyone who is a fan of Waterparks and their ability to push the boundaries of pop-punk and emo. Not many pop-punk bands will experiment as unabashedly or as ambitiously as Waterparks does. I think this album just isn't for Luke from Rocked, or anyone who wants to put Waterparks in a box. A pop-punk box.
What's in the fucking box?
Now, the reason this album is so low is because I haven't had as much time with it as I have the other albums on this list. On first listen, I really enjoyed the album. I think it's just different enough to set it apart from the rest of the band's discography, but familiar enough to know that it's the Waterparks brand. But opinions can change. Sure, I like this album now, but I could come back to it in a year or two and think it's complete and utter shit. I don't foresee that happening.
But it's still a possibility.
So while it's a very good album, it still has yet to prove its staying power with me.
So when are you gonna sing for me? When are you gonna drink for me? I don't know, I don't know. So when are you gonna sing for me? Ruining me completely, it's true.
You know, fandom really feels like the first step in Waterparks' more experimental run that they've been having recently. It's a really pivotal album for them, in my opinion. I think it was the first time they showed they can be more than just a pop-punk band. That they were a band with potential. By the time Fandom came out, I was already kind of off the Waterparks bandwagon. I still liked them, but I wasn't like chomping at the bit for new material. When I heard about this album, I will admit I got kind of excited. Especially when I heard the first single, Turbulent.
I don't fuck you if I could. Ooh, I don't love you like I should. Months before I did, and the months before I split, it's turbulent, turbulent.
If you've been watching this channel since 2019,
Which I doubt you have.
you might remember that I reviewed this track pretty positively. Whatever, I give this song 2 thumbs up about 7 out of 10. Go listen to it, stream it, buy it if you're into buying songs like some sort of peasant. And I still think it holds up. It's got those great break beats I love, an ear-catching hook, and good energy. And I found myself enjoying the subsequent singles. I thought Watch What Happens Next was a really cool song with a really interesting message to fans. Essentially calling out the ones who wanted them to stay the same and not change and not sell out, while also criticizing the closed-mindedness of modern music culture. And Dream Boy is probably one of my favorite songs that Waterpark has ever released. It's just pure pop perfection. And then there's High Definition, which, how is this not a modern emo classic? It's so atmospheric and personal. Austin's vocal performance on this track just gets me every time. And the non-singles are great too. Cherry Red is a fantastic opener. Telephone has proven its virality via TikTok, as well as the album's standout track, I Miss Having Sex, but at least I Don't Want to Die Anymore. I didn't have high expectations for this album, but even then, it still shocked me with how good it was. Fandom is Waterparks stepping out of their comfort zone and polarizing their fan base with experimentation and growth. The vision is clear, the band is tight, and the hooks are abundant. I think if you really want to get into modern Waterparks, this album is a good place to start. It's a perfect encapsulation of the modern Waterpark sound.
I can't even count the times I settled for these rebel lines. Tell me, won't you stay away for me?
Waterparks were seen as a breath of fresh air in the pop-punk genre in the 2010s, fusing the electro-pop of a band like Hello Goodbye with the classic pop-punk sound of a band like Saves the Day or Green Day, as well as some hip-hop influences from people like Childish Gambino and the pop of an artist like Kesha. I didn't personally get into Waterparks until a few years after their debut album was released. That's why it's at the number 2 spot. But when I did listen to it, I had to agree with the hype. They really set themselves apart from other pop-punk bands at the time. Stupid For You doesn't sound like any other song out at that time.
Tell me what you want me to say. You know I'm stupid for you. Can you come and come out and play? You know I'm stupid for you.
Whereas every other pop-punk band at the time was trying to be The Story So Far or Real Friends, taking themselves so seriously and trying to be cool and tough, Waterparks were unabashedly themselves. Colorful, obnoxious yet self-aware, and fun. This album really exemplifies that.
Mind your head, I lost my mind from thinking about you all the time. Mind your head, it's lost its sight from thinking about you all the time.
My introduction to Waterparks was not through their debut album, but through their sophomore release, Entertainment. I had heard of Waterparks and I knew they were a big deal within the scene, but I didn't really listen to them like that. At the time, I think I was on my pop-punk hiatus. I was listening to the genre less and less, instead listening to more emo and math rock and indie rock. Pop-punk was just kind of lost in the shuffle. Sure, there were albums like Never Happy Ever After by As It Is, and bands like Modern Baseball and Neck Deep that I was really into, but the genre as a whole, it just kind of lost me. I assumed Waterparks was just gonna be another pop-punk band. They were 3 pretty dudes with colorful hair, they were goofballs, they just didn't hit with me at the time. I didn't really pay that much attention to them for a while. But then I saw the music video for the song We Need to Talk, where Austin jumps out of a window after a fight with his ex-girlfriend, and then she brings him back as a zombie. That got me interested. So I decided to check out another music video, this one for the song Blonde, off of this same album, the newest one at the time. And this song was catchy and fun too, and it just got stuck in my head. I figured that all the songs that I liked were from this one album, that I should go out and get it. And I did. That couldn't have been more perfect if I tried. I remember listening to this album a lot. I was in a weird place in 2018. I had a job I hated. I had no money, no direction, but a lot of dreams. I was experiencing some shitty personal relationships, and this album became a sort of safety blanket for me. It wasn't that the themes in the album related to what I was experiencing, but rather it soundtracked a good portion of that year in my life. I vividly remember daydreaming while driving my car to songs like Lucky People. And songs like Peach Lobotomy just get stuck in my head the moment I even just think about them. I hold a lot of nostalgia for this album because I listened to it at such a pivotal moment in my life, as well as being my introduction to Waterparks, the band. Is it annoying that every time I do a ranking video that the one that's always at the #1 spot is one that I just have a lot of nostalgia for? Just let me know.
I know I'm lonely, but I won't come over. I really thought you were my four-leaf clover. I really thought that I was lucky.
What do you think of my rankings? Do you agree? Do you not agree? That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, then I highly recommend smashing the like button and sharing this video with everyone you know. Everyone?
Everyone.
We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers, and every like, every comment, every share, any interaction with this video at all really helps to push it out to more people who might be interested in what I'm doing. With all that being said, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Trevor. Stay uncool. That's the end of the video. Goodbye.